in the work that I do, I have about 20 strategies that I teach my clients. And not everybody needs all 20, but they're broken down into levels: foundational, situational, and next level. The 3 foundational strategies are the ones that I believe, if you do nothing else, these are the 3 that clients should have in place inside their business.
Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast, where business owners learn to scale their profits and cash flow and work less doing it. You built your business to fulfill your dreams and serve your mission. You're the backbone of America, creating the jobs and opportunities that keep our economy moving. And for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified. It's the first baby step in a journey we take our clients on, building cash-rich, margin-strong businesses that don't suck the life out of you. Check out the first 13 episodes of the podcast. It's Mike Michalowicz and my review of each chapter of the Profit First book. Around here, we speak cash flow, profit, and practical execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. Most accountants, they might help you save on taxes, but they'll crush your cash flow and make you look unprofitable. That's not just a poor decision, it's a liability. We help you focus on what you love. And when we partner together, we become a profit center for your business. If we don't deliver a massive ROI on your investment in us, fire us. Want to see how it all works? Watch the video version on YouTube or head over to ProfitComesFirst.com to grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book and start making profit a habit. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back big. Most business owners hustle for revenue, but lose track of profit and cash flow. You don't need to grind harder to grow. You need proven systems that make your business more profitable, your cash flow more predictable, and your life a whole lot easier. That's what I do. I help you to turn confusion into clarity and growth into real wealth that provide you the time and money freedom you deserve. Welcome to episode 300. I guarantee you there'll probably be at least another 300 coming because I love what I do and I have fun sharing it so that you all can make more money. Let's face it, if you're like most business owners, you already know referrals are supposed to be the easiest, warmest, highest converting source of new clients. But be honest, are you getting anywhere near as many of them as you should be? And if you are, how consistent, predictable, and repeatable are they? Stacey Brown Randall is back again, and she is one of the few people who can show you how to generate referrals without asking, without being bribey or gimmicky or salesy. Her newest book is the Referrable Client Experience, and she's going to show us the hidden science behind why referrals happen and why they don't. Let's meet Stacey and see how it's done so you can increase your business. Welcome back to the Profit Answer Man, Stacey Brown Randall. It's great to have you again.
Thank you for bringing me back on. I appreciate it.
Most welcome. Remind everyone, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yes, so I work with small business owners and I teach them how to generate referrals without asking, without incentivizing, without feeling like they're manipulating someone or feeling like they got to be gimmicky or promotional. So we call it generating referrals based on the science of referrals. And it's definitely, I think, one of those things that most people want referrals, but they just don't want to ask or feel like they're manipulating folks and they don't know another way. So they just kind of ignore referrals and let them happen randomly. And I always want folks to understand that there is a control factor that you can have with referrals, but you've got to understand how referrals work first. So it is always fun for me to be able to come back on podcasts for a second time where we can kind of go deeper and talk about other areas of referrals because it is not so nuanced as people think. Like it's not so like one line, only one thing as people think it is.
And we'll get into the science of that. The last time you were on, you talked about your first book, Generating Business Referrals. Today, we're here to talk about the Referrable Client Experience. So what's kind of the difference between the two?
Yeah, that's such a great question because when people, they'll come to me, they'll be like, hey, which book should I start with? Or are they about the same thing? And I'm like, no, that would be very boring if the books were carbon copies of each other. So in the work that I do, I have about 20 strategies that I teach my clients. And not everybody needs all 20, but they're broken down into levels: foundational, situational, and next level. The three foundational strategies are the ones that I believe, if you do nothing else, these are the three that clients should have in place inside their business. And so the books are based on those three foundational strategy. So the first book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, is based on the strategy for existing referral sources. So if you have people referring you now and you want to know what to do, what are the 5 steps to do to be able to get more referrals from them, then the first book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, is going to tackle that for you. The second book is the new book is the Referrable Client Experience. And the client experience, being able to not only be referable, but then bridge the gap to receive referrals from your clients and your client experience. That's another one of our foundational strategies. And so that's what book number 2 is written on. And these are separate strategies for separate buckets of people, right? And then, of course, we have our potential referral sources. Those are the people that we want to refer, but they've never done it. And that book hasn't yet to be written. So it's probably going to be book number 3. I've been teaching these strategies for over a decade. But when I sat down to write that first book, I was like, okay, I wrote the book. I thought it was like one and done, like I wrote the book. And then then I was like, wait, everybody thinks this is it. I'm like, no, there's like 19 other strategies. But so it's been an interesting journey writing the second book and kind of being like, okay, we look at 2 totally different groups of folks in terms of who can refer. So they tackle 2 different areas in the business.
And it seems that you have to know who that person is to use the right strategy.
It's so true. Like every time people come to me and they're like, hey, what do I need to do? Or what should I say? I'm like, none of that matters until you know who you're doing it for. Right. So, people are like, okay, think about your existing referral sources. Well, that can be clients and centers of influence. And then depending on your industry, if you're B2C, not so much if you're B2B, but if you're B2C, it could also be your family and friends. So like I always tell folks is that if people are referring you now, that existing referral source label is so much more important than the client label or the COI label, right? Like they get both, right? They're a client and they're referring. So now they're an existing referral source. There's a whole strategy for what we can do to that group. We can do different things. We can say different things and we can do less things actually because they've already referred. Very different from somebody who's never referred you. Potential referral sources, the strategy looks very different.
And we'll go into some of that. Before we do, though, on the front cover of the book is a quote by Mike Michalowicz.
Yes, big fan.
So I had to ask, how did that come about?
Yes. So, when you're writing a book, they're like, start thinking about who you want to endorse it. And let's be honest, they're like, biggest names you can get, right? Like that's what they tell you to consider. It's like, who do you know? Biggest names that you can get. And so Mike was on my list. I'm a big fan of Profit First. I have been doing it in my business since 2019. And so I have just loved what he stands for. I've never met him, but years ago, I think it was 2018, I was on his Grow My Accounting Practice podcast. I don't remember that's the exact title now, but I was on his podcast. So I knew when I reached out, I could mention, hey, you interviewed me, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was on the podcast. So I knew there was some familiarity, but he also is connected to my publisher, Page 2. Now he wasn't, that's a new thing for him that he's doing now. So I just got up the guts and sent the email. And it was kind of funny. And I think the fact that I wrote it funny got his attention. And then he was willing. So I basically was just like, I expect you to say no, but there's a chance you'll say yes. So, I'm going to just ask if you'd be willing to endorse my book. And I kind of know, just from my publisher's perspective and things like that, what they're looking for, the breakdown, the synopsis and all the things. And so I just made sure I had everything ready to go. And when he was like, yes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he just said yes. So that was really cool.
Mike is very cool. He does respond. I don't know. He used to respond to all his emails. I don't know that he does anymore just because he gets overwhelmed at this point. But he's always been extremely giving. So not surprising at all.
Well, yes, I feel that way too. But it's interesting because people are like, did you just send an email? And I'm like, no, like I rewrote this email like 7 times. Like I was trying to get it right. I was trying to be like, it's okay if you don't. And I was trying to be funny at the same time. I was trying to get his attention, but it was all very real. And like, I think I opened the email with saying, I'm actually late in sending this email because I've been too scared to send it, which was true because I had rewritten it 7 times and had been sitting on it. So, sometimes just being honest, but if there's some humor to it, it gets people's attention.
And you did tell him you use profit first, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And, and I've mentioned it before, even on my podcast. So I think I threw everything in the kitchen sink. Like I use it. I've been on your podcast, like all the things. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Same.
So if people have the question, why do I need to listen to this? I'll just tell them to ask themselves, are you receiving so many referrals you can't keep up, right? Because if you're not, then this might be something to pay attention to. One of the things I love about this, though, is it doesn't cost any money, does it?
So it depends.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think it depends on what type of strategy you're deploying and what that's going to ultimately look like for you. We tell our clients shoestring budgets definitely are welcomed, as are actually having healthy budgets for generating referrals. It just depends on the strategy you're deploying and what you're doing.
Is the money usually a thank you after the fact, or is it prior to?
So that's such a good question. So we always tell folks, don't connect. If you're going to send someone a thank you gift, right? Don't connect it to the referral they just sent. Because then you get yourself in this place to where you're feeling like I got to send a gift every time they refer. And then it looks like that's only time I'm thinking of you is when you've referred. And so now I'm sending a gift. So when we teach, and this is for existing referral sources. So these are people who refer you. When you get a referral from them, all we want you to do is send a handwritten thank you note. That's what we want you to do for the referral you just received. But the strategy says you should have a plan in place that is 5, 6, or 7 outreaches, which we call touch points internally, but 5 to 7 touch points that are going to happen throughout the year. And they're going to happen regardless of when those referrals show up. So in that case, you've got this experience that you're building for your referral sources that's running in the back end. And all you're doing when they refer is sending a thank you note. So it keeps the structure and the logistical lift a lot easier and doesn't make you feel like you got to run around like a crazy person every time you get a referral because you need to get them a gift. And then can you imagine somebody gives you 4 referrals in a year and you're like, well, what did I give them the last time? It just eliminates all of that.
That's what giftology is all about.
Well, I have other opinions on that, but okay.
That's fine. So one of the things I've noticed lately is a shift in how people are doing this. So it used to be that people would say, hey, I'm going to refer you to so-and-so. They send the double email or the email to both people. Hey, I'd like to refer you to so-and-so. What I'm noticing now, and maybe it's a sign of the times, people prefer to make an introduction versus a referral. And the reason they're doing it, at least from what I'm seeing, is they don't want to be blamed if things don't go well. It's like, I don't want to be blamed if you go with this person and you didn't like the experience because maybe it's the person they referred and not the experience.
So I obviously am in my clients' data on a daily basis, looking at their dashboards and what's happening with referrals. And, we will track. So the way that I teach my clients is that a referral is where you've been connected to a prospect by a referral source and the prospect knows they're the prospect. There's been a need identified and this prospect needs what you do, right? We say an introduction is you're connected, but there's no need identified, which is kind of what you're saying you're seeing more of in place of referrals. And then there's also word of mouth buzz where I'm like, hey, Rocky, I told someone about you and I gave them your information and they're going to reach out. So we know there's someone out there who has a problem, but we don't know who they are because we weren't connected to them. And that's word of mouth buzz.
They never seem to call me.
They don't, because that word of mouth buzz is not good, right? Like, I mean, it's better than nothing, right? I mean, clearly, but you're not in the driver's seat. So you don't know how to follow up. So what we teach folks, so I'm in there looking, like if we see, so one of the things that my clients can track is they can track, hey, this was actually word of mouth buzz that flipped itself into a referral, or this was word of mouth buzz and I flipped it into a referral. And now here it is in my dashboard as a referral. And same thing with introductions. So I'm not seeing the increase and people are like, I'm getting more introductions than actual referrals, right? But it's always kind of existed. And the reason for that, so if you feel like as a business owner, you're like, people are introducing me to other people, but they're not saying to those other people, you should hire me. There's a couple of things I want you to pay attention to. One, of course, is sometimes it's the trust factor that the referral source has with the person that they're referring. It has nothing to do with you, right? They're actually very happy to refer you, but they don't know this person as well, or they don't have that type of relationship, or they know behind the scenes they're a hot mess. I mean, who knows what it is, right? So they're making more of the introduction. So they just can be a little bit more hands off. But it doesn't always mean there's something wrong with the relationship they have with you as the solution provider, the person receiving the referral. It may be based on the relationship that they have with the prospect that they're ultimately trying to refer, but are only making an introduction for. Or it's the reverse. There's actually a lack of trust with you. And so they think about referring someone to you, or they think about introducing you to someone, but they won't go all the way and refer and put the reputation on the line. But that isn't always because you're doing something wrong. Sometimes they just don't know you well enough, right? I mean, think how many times you've gone to coffee with somebody and you've met someone, you're like, oh, that was a great coffee meeting. And then 2 days later, randomly, you're having a conversation with someone and they need that person you just met for coffee, but you only met them for coffee and you haven't known them for 10 years or 2 years or 20 days. You've known them for 2 days, right? And so you're willing to make that connection happen because you're being helpful, but you have you don't really know the person you're referring this person to because you don't know them. So it has more to do with the type of relationship or lack thereof that you have with the referral source who's referring to you. So if you feel like you're getting more introductions, it could be like, look at who's doing the introducing, right? Look at who's doing the introducing, but trying to make it referrals and figure out, well, and I'm not surprised. They don't know me as well. Or we just met recently. Or wow, it's been many, many years. They don't even know if I'm doing what I still do, right? Like, so sometimes it's about recognizing what's behind, like we got to peel the layer back one layer and just be like, what's behind that from that perspective. And I also think there are serial networkers who just connect people to connect people and they don't really know why they're doing it. And when you get a lot of those, they do it because they feel like they're like getting like karma or something. I don't really know, right? Like there's it's like they're keeping up with their chips. Like, oh, I'm making all these connections. I mean, I had one person we met and then the very like next week, I think I got 7 referrals from him. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. By the first call, I realized, just kidding, I'm being referred to all these people. He met me and now he needed somebody to refer to all these other people. And so now I'm being referred. They were all pitching me, not the other way around. I was like, oh. And I got on the second call just to make sure I was right. I'm like, yep, I'm right. And the rest of them were like, we don't need to call. I'm not buying whatever you're selling. So, I mean, it is kind of sometimes paying attention to what's the story behind what you're seeing in the email.
No, and I appreciate you explaining all of the different situations. And so this came up in our industry group. And I think part of it is nobody wants to say to somebody else, hey, your numbers suck. You should go talk to this guy. Well, I mean, think about it, right? Because that's why we're getting referred.
Right.
You don't understand your numbers. You could have great revenue, but there's a financial problem. And what I find is when it comes to financial problems, there is a whole lot of emotions tied around to it. Like it's probably easier to get referred to a sex therapist because people will talk about their sex lives more than they'll talk about their financial lives, right? So it's that weird dynamic. And so I don't know if it's just our industry. The other thing I think is these days, even though, especially in the world of small business, right? So somebody refers somebody to someone like me, but they end up not with me, but in my company's sales person or funnel. And they don't end up working with me. They end up working with somebody in the firm. And so they don't know who they're actually kind of getting connected to. And what I have found is a lot of times, especially in smaller firms, the owners are the geniuses and the people around them may not have the same skill level or training or whatever. So it creates a little bit of hesitancy. That's all.
Yeah. So I think from that perspective, right? Like if I'm referring to you and then all of a sudden you're not the person talking to the people I refer to you anymore, right? That can certainly cause a pause on my end. Like, well, I really trust Rocky, but I don't know anybody else. But so here's the thing. When I'm talking with my clients, we have a strategy called dealing with business model changes or transferring the referral source relationship. All of that stuff should have been handled in advance. Your referral source should never be in a position where they're like, I was referring you to Rocky, but now you're talking to Sarah and I don't really know what's happening. If that were the plan, if the business owner was like, I want people to be referred to Sarah because I'm doing these things now, that is a conversation that you have with your referral sources, at least like your gold level and maybe your silver level referral sources. We don't leave that stuff up to chance. The problem is most businesses leave that stuff up to chance. Like they change a direction, they offer a new service, they take away a service, they want you to refer to somebody different, and they don't communicate to the people who are doing the referring. And so that's on the business owner. I'm like, no, you can't just change the game on them. You've got to address it. The other thing that I will just mention, because you said like people don't want to tell other people their numbers suck, right? I mean, I get that, but when I talk to like folks whether it's in finances or some other things, right? What I have found is that when somebody has been through what the person's going through and has come out on the other end better, they have no problem making that connection, right? And sometimes, people may leave working with me and be like, I tripled my referrals in a year and sing it from a rooftop. It's a little less different than be like, my numbers sucked. And then I hired Rocky and they were amazing and here everything's great. It's right. It's a little bit of like what you did for them kind of can change the dynamic of how and who they tell, but they're always willing to certainly tell some people. It may not be as many people based on what you do.
Oh, no. And these aren't always necessarily, when I'm giving you examples, it's things I hear from clients as well and so forth. So it varies across the board. I just know, even for myself, even out networking and stuff, and just in learning how to market myself, I've noticed that you have to watch because people don't want to admit some of those types of things. And I get it. Nobody wants to say that things aren't as good as they should be. And honestly, I don't want them then. I prefer when they're in a good financial position and they want to scale and grow and they want that second set of eyes or the other thing. So it works both ways.
It definitely does. And keep in mind, there are actually people from a sales training perspective that teach. Like they have strategies that they teach. What they teach is different from what I teach, but they'll teach you don't want referrals, you want introductions. So it just totally muddies the water of what a referral is, what an introduction is, and what it means for you as the business owner. I mean, I think it also really comes down to like who you're listening to, right? Who do you let inside into your brain and to influence your thoughts and the strategies and things that you do? Because there are some training groups, large ones out there that are now teaching, oh no, we're going to teach you how to get introductions and you want these and here's why, and you don't want referrals. And I'm like, that's just semantics. But it's being taught. So it only dilutes the power and the understanding that people have about referrals.
And maybe that's what I was hearing, is that type of teaching. And so that might be where it came from. One of the things you talk about is the superpower that small businesses have in creating connections, because big companies really struggle to understand how the client feels and what's going on with them. And you talk about that. How do your clients feel, which is different than what most people are thinking on referrals, isn't it?
Yeah. So the way that client experience is defined today is it's how your client feels while they're working with you. Now, when I started writing this book back in 2019, and yes, I recognize that means it took forever to be published because it's 2025. But when I first started doing this, there were lots of very different definitions of client experience. Fast forward 6 years later, right? When I went back to last year to like refresh those sections to make sure that they were right, I was like, oh, everyone's kind of on the same page now. All the big consulting firms are kind of all now using the same definition of client experience, which is how your client feels. What people miss then is that as a small business owner, being small, it just became your superpower. Because it's your superpower to be small because you can do things that big companies can't do. And you can impact how a client feels at a different way, at a deeper way, and a faster way, and a more human way than a big company ever can. And if you want to go from having a good client experience to a referable one, you're going to have to make sure that you know and understand what those emotions are and how your clients feel, and that you're making sure that they feel seen through the process of working with you.
And that's a big part of it. I think we forget a lot of these things, right? And I know on the sales and marketing side, we always run into struggle because they're like, just get me more leads. I'm like, who's your ideal client? What's the message? And they even struggle with that. So this is like a step beyond that because people will say, oh, well, who should I refer to you? And everyone's like, well, everybody. Well, that's not
No, that's not a good answer.
That's not a good answer, right? Because they're not going to refer you'll end up with 7 sales calls, right?
That's
So
true.
do you find that people struggle with that answer or not really? They know who to have referred to them.
So this is one thing I always tell folks is if someone does ask you like, hey, who should I be looking out for? Who's an ideal client for you? Who should I refer to you? Right? I'm never going to tell my clients to put themselves in a position to ask somebody, hey, here's who you should refer to me, right? Because I teach people how to do it without asking. But I do tell my clients when somebody says, who should I refer to you? I want you to be prepared to answer the question if we believe they mean it. I think a lot of people ask that question as a throwaway. Like we've just had this great coffee meeting. We're talking, we're meeting. You've asked me questions about my business. Now I feel like it's my turn to ask you questions about your business. And a throwaway one is, who should I be on the lookout for? The question is that person going to remember that answer when they walk out the door? Right. And so I think the discernment there is really important. But I do think that people should know how to answer the question. And I find some do and some don't. But that is, to your point, their ability to be able to answer the what they do and who they help. That's just like a fundamental piece of being a business owner that we should all have tightened up. And so I do find that some people, like, if it takes you like 4 minutes to tell me what you do, we've got a problem. But it is one of those things I think very quickly business owners have to learn. You have to know how to answer that question.
Correct. And you also need to do it in a way that's engaging.
Right.
Right. Because if you, and I've been in networking groups, and that was the one thing, like the really good networking groups are like, look, if you can't introduce yourself in 30 to 45 seconds, no one's going to listen to you beyond that anyway. And we're going to hit the buzzer. So get it down, get it moving. It's just so that people know, oh, that's somebody I want to have a conversation with. Then you can go deeper afterwards. And, it's funny. It just reminded me, we were at an event and it's a networking event. And so somebody came up and they were telling us about their business. I know every single offering that business has. Okay. I have nobody to refer to that business because that's not necessarily what we do.
Yep.
But it was like every time she took a breath, she goes, oh, and we do the. And we do it. And it was like, okay, thank you. I now I don't even remember what you do.
That's what I think people get wrong about networking. Like, so when people come to me and they're like, I need new people referring me, I'm like, here's what you're not going to do. And it's exactly what you just explained. Because you'll never care about referring to her until you know that she cares. And she clearly showed you that she cares about herself, not about you. So when I teach the strategy that for my clients on how do we get new people to start referring to you, I tell them, I was like, we're going to slow down. We are not going to go in the front door like a bull in the china shop. We're going to go in the side door. And we're going to look to build relationships. We're going to see how we can take care of people. And we're actually going to release the expectation that referrals will come from every single human we have a conversation with. We're going to have to kiss some frogs before we get into the princes and the princesses. But ultimately, following the process, we're going to cultivate the right people to start referring.
And I think people need to realize that this is a numbers game. And you might meet 100 people and get 3 or 4 people who are actually good referral partners.
Yeah, I think being strategic is really important. I can't stand the spray and pray. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why are we walking into a networking room and being like, I'm going to get like 5 people from this group? Like, you need to know, like, that's why we always do like an ideal referral source profile. It's like, who actually comes across your client with some level of regularity that can refer to you. So then you can be on the lookout for just those people when you're going into networking events. And everybody else, you can just like have a lovely conversation with.
Now, before we had mentioned gifts. So let's touch base on that. What is your thought on gifts? We're right around the holiday seasons. And to me, it's like, I don't know. I find that the worst time to send a gift because there's so many, like if it's an industry where gifts are the norm, it just becomes overwhelming. Like, oh, we've got 38 boxes of cookies today. Wow, you're one more into the thing. And then the question is, how do you make a gift worthwhile or meaningful or not just like, I would never want to send anyone something with my logo. Because to me,
that's bad.
Yeah. Okay. Their logo's different or their name is very different, but not mine. Because that, as you said, is bad.
Yeah, that is bad. So here's the thing. One of the strategies that we teach folks and understanding how referrals work is there's nothing wrong with gifts, right? But they need to be used sparingly, right? When we look at behavioral economics behind what kind of actually really motivates someone to like remember you and be connected to you and look for opportunities is your ability to show up from a behavioral economics perspective with like surprise and delight and variety. So gifts are great to add to variety. If you're doing 5 in a year, that's just creepy. Right? Like that's not good. But and I have some clients who like to do gifts this time of year. I'm like, great. If that fits you, perfect. I have others who deliberately wait and do it a different time of year if they're doing gifts for clients or gifts for existing referral sources. But I do think your ability to do something more than just hit a button on a computer screen and order something is usually better. So I tell my clients, if the gift doesn't take you any time at all to order it, and it didn't take any time to think about it up front, it's probably not going to land the way you want it to. We want things to land like they're memorable and they're meaningful. And the things we remember are the ones that are heartfelt or funny. So I do tell my clients, like, we're not just sending a basket of popcorn just because it's easy to hit the button and order it and have it sent out the door. Like, we need to think through what is memorable, what is meaningful, what is humorous, right? So that the gift, if we're doing a gift, has impact. And then what is our messaging with that gift? All of that matters, particularly if it's part of a well-constructed year-long plan.
So what is a humorous gift?
Okay, you're putting me on the spot. Now I got to think of some. Okay, so there's been a lot.
Because that's a
you know what?
Fine line.
So let me. I'll just tie this one back to the book, that my second book, the Referrable Client Experience. I was just teaching this in a master class for people who bought the book and then were like, I'll never read the book. So let me just learn from Stacey. She'll teach me everything live. And so we had a master class this morning on it. It was our second class. And I was giving examples of things that can be memorable, and funny at the same time within the client experience. So, some people like to give their clients gifts or whatever. But this was when you signed up with this company. So this company's logo was a pickle. And so when you signed up with this company, they sent you like a box that had like pickle stickers in it and pickle paraphernalia and a huge pickle. It was like this big. I mean, it was crazy. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. Because I was like, and now granted, their logo is pickle. Their name has pickle in the name. So it was very much about them, but that was more like an onboarding gift, right? Hey, you're onboarding into our company and we want to make sure you remember us and see us and all those things. So that was much more where the branding and the logo piece worked, but it wasn't like their logo was slapped everywhere. It was their caricature of the pickle. That was. And I was like, that's a very clever gift. It was very funny. I did not eat the pickle, though, in case people are wondering. I didn't really know how long those boxes have been sitting around, but I did tell people about it, and I just told all your listeners about it too.
So it's memorable.
Yep. And sometimes funny is.
And it can be, yeah. And there are different. So out of curiosity, because you talked about that was an onboarding gift, when do you usually send the onboarding gift? Like after they verbally say yes or after they sign on the dotted line kind of yes?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So we look at the client experience begins the moment the client says yes, but sometimes they say yes to themselves and yes to you until they take the first step. It's whatever the first step is that they do that makes it official. So like when people are coming to work with me for some of my programs, they're going to fill out an online registration form, or they're going to put in their payment details and everything, right? Pick their payment plan or pay in full or whatever. And that's going to be the first, like that's where it starts. They may have said yes to themselves or yes to me 2 days earlier, but it's not official until they have committed. And that commitment is usually signing agreements, whatever it is in your business, paying an invoice, whatever. But the minute they say yes and they take that first step, they've entered into the new client stage. So your client experience has 3 stages. It's new, active, and alumni. Unless your clients never leave you, and then it's just new and active, and then active becomes ongoing. In the new stage, it depends on you of how long that lasts. But usually sometime in that first week or two, once they've said yes to whenever before the new stage is over, that relationship touch point, which in this case is like the gift that we're talking about, right? The welcome box is sent usually within, like maybe not the first day, but usually within the first 2 weeks.
So at the beginning, you talked about the science of referrals, and we should have gotten to this earlier so we'd spend more time on it. But what is the science of referrals?
Yeah. So when you look at referrals, so not to give like an in-depth science lesson, have a whole science conversation, the way that I like folks to think about this is that there are some key moments that are happening when referrals are happening that are baked and rooted in science. The first one is what's happening in the brain of the referral source. So the person who's connecting you to the prospect, they're referring a prospect to you. There's something that's happening in their brain, and that is the happiness trifecta. And that's when they do something that makes them feel good, and the feel good chemicals like dopamine are released in their brain. It's the dopamine and its 2 cousins are released in its brain. And it's like in that moment that they're referring to you, it's not about you. It's about the prospect they know that has a problem. And they get to be the hero by helping that prospect by referring them to you. And so I always tell folks, number one is what's going on in the brain of the referral source. And that means referrals aren't about you. They're about the referral source being a hero and helping a prospect. How they're doing that is by connecting them to you. You're just the solution provider. The second piece of science that we look at is the psychology of trust, which most people get from a referral perspective, that trust transfer, right? But what people get wrong is thinking that your referral source has to know everything about you before they can refer you. That's not what builds trust. What builds trust is knowing that we have a relationship and I don't forget about you and I remember you because you're nurturing a relationship with me. And that's why I trust you. I'm assuming also that you're good at what you do until you prove me wrong. And then, of course, trust can be broken. So most people get the psychology of trust, but they look at it incorrectly when it comes to having the referral source understand what they do and why they refer. It's not because they know your portfolio and all the acronyms after your name. That's not what anybody remembers about you. And then the third piece is behavioral economics. And that is how we maintain that relationship. And we look at what we call the positive side of behavioral economics, not the evil side of behavioral economics, like taking advantage of reciprocity. We don't do that. We look at the other side of behavioral economics in terms of how we build and look at the framework of the plans that we put in place to nurture the relationships with our referral sources.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a high level kind of overview.
No, that's fine. Is there anything we should have talked about with referrals that didn't get a chance to? I know you've got a ton of information, but I want to make sure that if there was something you really wanted to get out today and didn't, that you get a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think for the folks who maybe remembered and heard when the first time I was on your podcast talking about my first book, and now they're like, hey, what's some thought process around if I should get the second book, the Referrable Client Experience, is really understanding that it is different. The client experience is about how you move from just doing great work to developing relationships with your clients. And so we talk about this from there's a formula that you have to understand in terms of the client experience. There are stages you need to understand how the formula fits into the stages. There are best practices, there are pitfalls to avoid. And then once you've built that referable client experience, then we get to bridge the gap to referrals. And so I think that's really important for people to understand, because a lot of people think if I do great work, I'll get referrals. But as you said at the beginning, we're not drowning in referrals. So clearly there's other things we need to be doing. And I think it's important for people to know it's not just about the onboarding gift, right? It's not just about the box of pickles that you send. There's a whole strategy behind it, and understanding that for your business is really important.
And that's the one thing that I find most business owners, they just want to take action. Building a strategy isn't always on the top of their list. And it doesn't matter what part of the business it is. It's the same at every part. And I'm like, no, you have to create a strategy, and you have to understand what you're doing and why. Just throwing money at things is not going to solve the problem.
So true.
As much as they like. If people would like to learn more about you and get the book, what's the best way?
So anywhere books are sold. So if they prefer to read it on an e-reader or grab the printed copy, I'm old school, so I like the printed copies, or the audiobook. I am the narrator of the audiobook. It is available wherever you want to buy books.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I love Stacey's reminder that something that we all miss. Referrals aren't random. They aren't luck. They're the natural result of a thoughtful client experience and creating those real relationships, not gimmicks and social media. Hopefully today's conversation got you thinking about how referrals fit into your overall profit strategy, or why your revenue looks good, but the bottom line still isn't where it should be. That's what we help business owners uncover. Numbers tell a story, but most owners don't know how to read it. And that's where clarity changes everything. You want a second set of eyes on your financials, or a strategy to help you build and scale? That's what we help you. See, you don't always need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. And of course, we always love to focus on the bottom line. Thanks for listening to The Profit Answer Man, where we believe more revenue doesn't mean more profit, and the bottom line is what really matters. If you're ready to stop living check to check, take control of your cash flow, and finally get paid what you're worth, we should talk. We work with 7- and 8-figure businesses and well-funded startups. If you're a smaller business, check out the Profit Blueprint program. It's a do-it-yourself solution that also can come with my direct guidance in the same level we give our one-on-one clients. When you're ready for results, book a discovery call. There's a link in the show notes or at profitcomesfirst.com. You'll be speaking and working directly with me. In the meantime, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint at profitcomesfirst.com. It's the next step to turning your business into a consistent cash flow generating machine. If you'd like to dig more into leading yourself, your company, and building the ultimate life, listen to my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we cover these topics in great depth. There's a link in the show notes. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.